You did those two working groups on the topics I mentioned. What were the biggest takeaways? Diane?
Yeah, thanks, Beth. So, we were doing these working groups. Institute for Compensation Studies was doing these in partnership with CAHRS, and we're really trying to reach out to the community of experts in total rewards. And we had a sense from talking with colleagues that there was a lot of activity, a lot of things changing, and that was confirmed when we convened the groups and spoke to CAHRS partner companies. What we found particularly interesting was just the creativity that was going into thinking about new kinds of benefits packages. And we saw things that we really haven't seen, a huge emphasis on mental health and well-being and taking advantage of online tools. Things like meditation apps and online therapy. We also saw an interesting emphasis on financial well-being and new kind of services or offerings to help people manage their own finances, learn more about personal financial management. We also saw some creative things around financial wellness. Things like student loan repayments or contributions to 529 packages. So these were ways in which companies were offering new kinds of opportunities, benefits packages to their staff. We saw much more action on the benefit side, and we heard about much more than we did on the compensation side, just in the spring that we've been talking. And it was interesting. We heard from companies that had done a lot on site and they had to quickly pivot to figure out, as more and more of their staff were working in remote or hybrid formats during the pandemic, think about how to pivot to make those amenities available in some sort of comparable way. And so that was a place where we saw lots of action and activity, creativity and pivoting from staff at these companies.
Yeah. So, excuse me. I also remember that we also talked about not just the comp and benefit, but also other practices that the companies are thinking about, like adding recognition programs or thinking about how to integrate the career development program as part of the total reward package. So I see that a lot of companies have been doing all of those actions in different departments or different functions. And nowadays they are thinking about holistic approach of like which team will take in charge of developing a total reward experience for employees, and how can we merge all of those experiences together and deliver a comprehensive or holistic approach to employees about what their total rewards package are all about. So it is not only about comp and benefit, but also about all those other kind of activities. But along with Diane's point, I also found that there was a really big theme around personalization or differentiation. So we all know that people have different needs and preferences, and companies are now searching for ways to provide reward programs that are attracting and retaining the talent that they need. For example, in the current economic environment, companies are thinking about what they can do for employees in or are traveling to different countries such as Ukraine or Russia and China. They all have different needs to travel to those countries safely or to work in those countries. And then they have to think about ways to, fulfill their needs and preferences that may be different from those people in other parts of the country. And also, it is not only about the geographic country boundaries, but there might be some cultural differences that they have to think about. So, companies are thinking about what is the meaningful way to segment employees into different groups, and then what are the packages that they can deliver to that specific segment of the employees. So that's one way that I see. Also, it is not only about like culture or geographic differences, but age differences can be a big thing too, right? Those people who have been company for a long time may have different needs than those people who just joined the company right after graduating colleges. And how should they think about their needs different from other groups that have been there for a long time? Are they really different? If they are different, what they can do. Those are another big theme that arose, in our discussion about this total reward package. One more thing that I found interesting is about employee turnover. So people say as employee turnover became more frequent, companies are thinking about ways to offer total reward to retain and attract talent that they need, but it can be a little more selective. For example, when turnover of top performers became higher than the past, maybe average turnover rate increased, but should they be concerned about it or not? Or how many top performers are staying? And what can we do specifically for those top performers than other groups? Do they have different needs? For example, do we need to think more about helping them building friendship at work as after this pandemic, this remote work or flexible work practices become more popular? And are those top performers not really, feeling the bonds that they used to have in the past? And how can companies help them building up like friendship or more collaborative work environments? So, research is fairly clear that as people do more proactive or pro-social actions, they tend to feel more committed to their colleagues, and then they are more committed to their work. If they have relatively fewer opportunities to engage in pro-social activities or in-person interactions, then they may feel less bond and they are more likely to quit. What can organizations do for it? Right? It is not only a matter of saying like retirement fund or giving more pay, but it was more about the experience that companies has to offer to those specific kind of people, right? So I see that companies are thinking and doing a lot in those space about how to make meaningful segmentation of employees, and then what can we offer to them that are unique to their companies. In doing so, I also saw companies are looking for ways to maintain cost at a reasonable level. So an emerging approach is offering benefit choices within a constant dollar amount. And this has led to the emergence of new kind of HR benefit companies or benefit vendors who enables this kind of choices. So that has been a trend. And I see that in my own research, I see that industry-wise, those HR vendor or benefit vendors are really increasing, has been increasing for the past decades, which means that there is a lot of market demands. So, that is a reasonable way to think about the cost effectiveness side. But at the same time, I see that companies are getting a little bit of pushback from their employees that, if they have to contact the HR vendors to get the benefit, not directly to the companies, they are somewhat confused about the communication that they have to do, how that is combined with other sorts of experiences that the companies are offering too. So, those using third parties makes sense from a cost perspective, but also they have to think about those consistent experience companies wants to offer to employees and whether those vendors are playing that role well for their employees. And if they don't do well, what can they do? For example, I remember one of those, working group company, one company that joined the working group said that they added 3 full-time FTEs just to play the role of benefit navigator to help employees learn about various options the company offers and how they can choose those different options. So rather than just laying out all of those options and say, here are the vendors and they will just take care of all of those, but companies has to communicate that well to the employees why they are offering those options and how they can choose those options for their best interest. And that was a big role. So it is not just the current existing or comp and benefit or HR functions role, but they actually felt the need that they had to add a full-time employees just playing that role, 3 people, physically being in the office, doing all of those communications employees. So that was another big thing that I learned, from all of these discussions.